Hey guys, welcome to another math video. I'll be going over trigonometric functions for this one. Okay, so these are the things we're going to be doing. I'm hoping it won't be too long, but I will be giving you guys some explanations on them, so hopefully that'll make them a lot easier to understand. Okay, so there are basically 6 trig functions that we're going to go over. These are them, so they're sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. And primarily we use these when we're talking about right triangles. I say primarily because we don't always use right triangles when we're using these functions. And the 3 main ones that we use are sine, cosine, and tangent. Those are the 3 main ones we use. Okay, so you've probably heard SOHCAHTOA at one point if you took geometry, or even trig. Okay, so these are the ratios for sine, cosine, and tangent. You might also see them like this. Okay, but we're going to primarily focus on the ones on the top row, and I know they don't make much sense now, but once we look at a picture, it'll hopefully click a lot better. Okay, so here we go. So the angle, we use theta to represent our reference angle, and it really depends on what angle you're talking about, because that really that helps you label the sides appropriately. Okay, so if you take a look at the sine ratio, so sine of the angle is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So sine of your angle is going to be equal to the side that's opposite or across from your angle, so the opposite side over the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is, as you recall, is always across from the right angle. Okay, so now cosine is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is the side that's next to the angle that is not the hypotenuse. So since this is the hypotenuse, this cannot be the adjacent side. It is an adjacent side, but it's not the adjacent side. Okay, so the adjacent side is the side that's not the hypotenuse. Okay. Tangent is the opposite side over the adjacent side. So opposite over adjacent. Or in some cases you might see it as sine over cosine. Okay. So I hope that picture really helped put it into perspective. And like I said, it also depends on what angle you're talking about. Of course, if this was my angle, this side would be the opposite side, and this side would be the adjacent side. So you gotta be careful what angle you're talking about. Okay, so now we'll talk about the reciprocal functions. So each of these 3 trig functions has its own reciprocal function. Okay, so for sine, its reciprocal function is called cosecant, and you see it here, CSC, cosecant. Okay, and you're basically just flipping it upside down. So whatever ratio of sine is, cosecant is just going to be flipped over. Okay, cosine, its reciprocal function is secant. Okay, that's here, and again you're just going to flip this over, and that's what secant is. Tangent, its reciprocal function is called cotangent, and again you just flip it over. And if you forget which one corresponds to which, just remember that each pair of reciprocal functions has a co on it. So sine, cosecant, cosine, secant, tangent, cotangent. Okay? So if you want the reciprocal function for sine, just know that it has a co attached to it, so it's cosecant, in case you forget. Okay, so take a look at an example here. So using the right triangle, we're going to find the ratios for the 6 trig functions. Okay, so we'll start off with the 3 basic ones, sine, cosine, and tangent. And then from there, we'll do cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Okay, so this is the reference angle here, which makes this side the opposite side, and this side the adjacent side. Okay, so let's start off with sine. So sine should be 4 over 5. Okay, cosine would be 3 over 5. and tangent will be 4 over 3. Now the easy part about this is that once you have these three, finding the other three trig functions, the reciprocal functions, will be easy because all you gotta do is flip them over. Okay, so sine's reciprocal function we said was cosecant, so all we're gonna do is flip over 4 over 5 and we get 5 over 4 for cosecant. Cosine's reciprocal function is secant, so we're gonna flip over 3 over 5. So that's what we get for secant, and tangent's reciprocal function is cotangent, so we just flip it over again, and that's what we get for cotangent. Okay, pretty simple, right? Okay, let's try another one. Okay, so in a right triangle, if sine theta is equal to 5 over 13, find the remaining trig ratios. So what's nice about this is we have one trig ratio done. So it's really just finding the other 5. But if you remember, sine was opposite over hypotenuse, which means we still need to find the adjacent side. So luckily, we know that we're dealing with the right triangle because it tells us we have the length of one of the legs and the length of the hypotenuse, so we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side. So after substituting in and solving for the missing side, we should get this. And I know what you're thinking. We have a square in the equation here, and there should be two answers. You're right. But we're dealing with triangles, and triangles use measurements, and we don't have negative measurements. No such thing as negative measurements. So we're only going to stick with the positive answer in this case. So now we have the adjacent side. We can find the trig ratios. So we got the first one, sine. Cosine will be the adjacent over hypotenuse. We know that hypotenuse is 13, and we just found the adjacent side here. And tangent will be opposite over adjacent. And from here we can find the remaining trig ratios. Alright, so I hope that was pretty straightforward. That's it for this video. So tune in for my next video, and I'll see you next time.